Hello. So I'm Jo, and this is Nikki. When I first started writing what I thought this presentation would say, my first sentence was, "We all come to pornography a little differently," and then I thought, that doesn't quite work. Or maybe it does. It's fair to say that we do all approach this conversation differently. Some with curiosity, some with concern, some with excitement, some even with disgust. But what we hope to do today is not to bring strong opinions or personal beliefs even, but some information and some ideas about moving forward. This can be a really polarizing conversation, both professionally and personally we've found that. And so it is never our intention to do that, to create a yes or no, a black or white, a blah, blah, blah. We're not those people. What we do want to do is have a conversation amongst professionals and experts about what we're seeing happening. We're not going to refer to every stat or every quote. From what I understand, that people will receive this? Yes. So you guys will all receive a copy of the presentation, and that's for your further information later, for your further reading. Some of the images and some of the statistics are quite confronting. It is not our heart to do so. We're not trying to shock anyone or scare anyone into a particular position. We genuinely want to just bring an honest element to this, and so that we can all move forward and help our beautiful young people as much as possible. So Nikki's going to paint a little bit of a picture about what this new pornography landscape is.
Thanks, Jo. I've worked in sexual health for about 10 or 15 years now with lots of you here in different areas, and I segued into pornography a couple of years ago. I was doing a lot of work internationally on child sex trafficking and was up in the Philippines, which is the international hub for cyber sex, and was surprised at how many of the young girls there had actually been trafficked into being filmed for pornography. Running parallel to this, we've got a house of teenagers, and I do a lot of work with young people, and was interested at how much pornography in the last 2 or 3 years has really become an inherent part of their sexual vernacular. So decided I needed to do a little bit of work on the area. Was up at University of New South Wales and met with the sexual violence and sexual health experts working in the area of pornography. And there were two things that were very evident. The first was that we've got a whole new pornography landscape for young people, and I think it's very hard for anyone pretty much over 25 to kind of make sense of that. The second is there's a very strong body of emerging data now on the impact of porn on children and young people. And what is evident is that it's no longer a moral issue, it's a public health or a sexual health issue, and despite our own personal beliefs, it's something that we need to start having a conversation about. So the new porn landscape, we're talking new in regards to 3 main areas. The first is the actual industry itself. So porn is, with the explosion of technology, porn has really come into our homes. I think at the height of Playboy, which was 1976, there were 5.4 million copies of Playboy per month in distribution. So Pornhub, which is one of about 2 million porn sites, gets 64 million hits a day, so that gives you some indication of just how much porn is available. New Zealand is the 5th biggest user per capita. Teen is our biggest search item, and 18 to 24-year-olds, but clearly you just tick your age. So teenagers up to 24 are our biggest users. Takes up a huge amount of internet traffic, and interestingly, the old historic protective measures, particularly that young people had, cost, access, privacy, are all gone now. So porn is affordable, accessible, anonymous, and by and large really acceptable. This gives quite a good visual representation. Content. This is the second area that's changed dramatically. So historically, mainstream porn was what we really term erotica now. There's been a number of meta-analysis looking at porn content, and they're suggesting about 88% is sexually aggressive in nature, and of that, 94% directed towards women. And the type of sex within mainstream porn now is also very different. This gives quite a nice visual representation of porn as a lot of us knew it. and then porn as it is now. And this is, remember, young people that are viewing this and trying to, often not having the ability to critically assess it. And then coupled with this has been a proliferation of very, very extreme porn as well, all which is just freely available. So the third area that's changed in regards to the landscape is consumption. So as you can imagine, with free porn everywhere, easy to access, young people are engaging with porn in a whole new way. So older data suggested about 77% of adolescents engage with porn, but we've had 2 recent studies this year which are giving us a lot more of the picture that we're certainly seeing anecdotally. The Australian ones of particular interest, so 100% of boys and 67% of girls engage with porn, but of them 85% of the boys and 24% of the girls did it daily or weekly, 2-3 times a week. And this is certainly something we're seeing. Again, having teenagers in our home, the kids watch it on the bus, they watch it at school. I got a text yesterday from a foster kid, a girl that lives with us, saying, help, I'm in the, at Matrons, and all the boys are sitting watching porn on their phones. You know, it's very, very normalised. Often first exposure is accidental, often doing homework searches and at a young age. Interestingly, for a lot of young people, it's their first sexual experience and sexual encounter as well. And very, very normalised, as I said, so kids watch it with their friends. In fact, there's a lot of pressure. The kids say, if I don't watch pornos, everyone asks me what kind of porn I watch, and it's awkward and it's embarrassing. So the question for us as health professionals is working with young people in the sexual health area is, how is it affecting young people? What are the impacts? So there's a great body of data now coming out internationally. We don't have much at all in New Zealand, but there's sort of 4 key categories. The first is we know it's shaping young people's attitudes, beliefs, and behaviours. So clearly, what a lot of the research is showing us is that it's if not the primary form of sex education for young people. It's where they go to learn about sex. And as they do that, it shapes their attitudes and their beliefs. It's really important to be aware that porn is a really powerful messenger for young people. It's visual, it's interactive. Often they say these role models or people they aspire to be like when they watch porn. And then obviously if they're masturbating to porn, it's physiologically reinforced as they watch. But arguably, it's quite problematic messaging in regards to sexual equality, pleasure, performance, sexual aggression, and kids don't often have the capacity, unlike adults, to critically assess it, and particularly with messaging that really normalises sexual aggression. So Jo will finish up with our next 3, and as they do, clearly this shapes their sexual behaviours.
So how does this play out in real life? What does this look like? It increases risky behaviours. So some of the ways we see that are early experimentation, but also kind of those risky behaviours like unprotected sex, so we see greater rates of unprotected sex. We know that in heterosexual pornographic scenes, condoms are only used about 3 to 4% of the time. They're actually used much more often in homosexual pornography, but we are seeing a decline in contraceptive and condom use in those Youth 2000 stats that were mentioned earlier, that as we go on we're seeing this decline, and it's not hard to pull a link between how much pornography is being consumed to what is then being practiced. We're seeing poor boundaries around coercion and consent. So it's kind of being deemed more acceptable to both push your partner further than what they might like, but also being seen as acceptable or to be expected that you will be pushed, that you can expect that from your partner and that is normal. And so we're seeing an increased probability of sexual coercion in practice with our young people. And unrealistic sexual expectations. So about 8 different studies recognised that young people saw pornography, that's not a thing, pornography as realistic, that is the template. So that's quite different from, I was... my first sex education experience was in high school, and so what was told to me, that was my reference point. But now, with young people coming across porn earlier than when they enter into sex education, or earlier than when parents talk about it, that is their reference point. We see increases of sexist attitudes, the viewing of girls as sex objects. You can see in these images here, these are real images that we've come across, both in the kind of fraternity, frat house culture, but we're also seeing that replicated here in New Zealand. We see greater stereotypical gendered beliefs, so that men are one way and females are another way. This is really concerning to me, that women see themselves or are being shown that they are less than males, that their pleasure is not significant, not important, and that really a female's role in sex is to please the man, that they are at the whim of his desires rather than what do I want and what do I need out of this experience, what's valuable to me. And young people themselves have, recognised this, and 70% believing that porn did in fact encourage society to view women as sex objects. I think in this area we're unfortunately seeing, a decline of strong values around gender equality. Nicola Garvey from University of Auckland coins this really well, I think, when she says that it is the eroticisation of inequality. When someone is being exploited or suppressed, being forced to submit, whatever it is that they're seeing, when that is the arousing factor, or that is the thing that is supposed to turn you on. As a culture, as a society, this is directly contradictory to what we believe about gender, and that we want to promote gender equality, and what young people are seeing en masse isn't that. We're seeing increases in aggressive attitudes and behaviours. I'm a little bit out of breath, but that's because I'm like 35 weeks pregnant, so it's just that. So these are some of the stats that we're seeing. We're seeing an increase in sexually aggressive behaviours, 4 times greater levels of sexual aggression amongst males, an increased likelihood. It's been coined what we call a behaviour accelerator. So if you had a young person who was vulnerable to being sexually aggressive later in life, that would happen sooner, faster, and with greater impact. Or someone who is vulnerable to potentially unhealthy sexual practices, that happens at a much earlier age, so it accelerates what might have happened later. And I think it's really important to note what colleagues and experts, other professionals are seeing anecdotally in their workplace. So internationally and locally, they're seeing an increase in child-on-child sexual assault. So you'll see there 75% of children or young people 7 to 11 years of age in treatment for problematic sexual behaviour, they report an early sexualisation through online porn, and an 80% increase in child-on-child offence over the last 3 years. I think we have to start giving ourselves permission to look at this, to listen to each other, to go, what role is pornography playing in some of this aggression? Is there a role? Let's start talking about it. And they're sounding an alarm, some of the experts in this field. You can see there, that's Dr. Joe Tucci from Australia. Poor long-term sexual health outcomes. So I'm a sex therapist, like was mentioned, a practicing sex therapist working with couples and with men, sometimes with women, but mostly actually with men, around their relationships and and some sexually compulsive behaviours. And I'm really concerned about what I'm seeing, where it's difficult to transition to a real-life partner after you've been aroused just by one particular style of pornography for multiple years, or through your key developmental years in adolescence, that then in real life, the person you're looking at maybe doesn't get you going in the same way, and your relationship starts to deteriorate. I'm really concerned that women are not recognising I guess, the importance of their own pleasure, that they think that that is less important, that they don't expect pleasure, but that that they somehow should also expect pain or expect discomfort, that should be a normal part of sex. Out of time. There you go. So, where to from here? I'm going through it. We need to start talking at the end of the day. If we leave sex education up to the pornography industry, we're leaving it to an industry that's built on profit and not built on well-being. And that's what we're all here for. So let's start talking more to each other about the impacts, but also talking to the young people in our lives. This is who we are. We aim to equip youth rangatahi and their whānau and professionals to navigate this new landscape. We're currently doing a survey with professionals in this space, and we would really love to hear your feedback on what you are experiencing so we can create the best possible resources. Thank you.